One of the most hateful things, and in my opinion, probably the worst thing that was ever said to Jesus is in this next story that we're going to read. Really horrible. What do you think the worst thing that somebody could say to Jesus? That he was Satan. Or not really particularly him, Satan, but Satan had him. That the stuff that was going on through Jesus and delivering other people from demons and healing people, the accusation here, what these guys said, was that was Satan doing it. Which Jesus went, no, he kept his cool. He didn't go, what? What are you saying to me? To get all hurt and all that. He realized they were deceived by the devil himself. And so he kept his cool. That's what we should do in each situation we go into. And then he just really told them the truth and logically destroyed what they were saying, canceled it. So here's what happened. Scribes, experts or so-called experts, teachers of the law, official ones, not just any scribe. There were scribes all over, but the biggies, probably from the Sanhedrin itself, came from Jerusalem. They took a hike down, even though it looks up like it's going up on a map, it's actually down because this is higher than this in landform. It's kind of like this, kind of tilted. So this is more, this is a little bit higher on mountains. They went down to Capernaum. That's about a 75 to 80 mile hike. Now, that's interesting right here. How did they hear about that? He's doing this stuff. He's probably in Capernaum right now, but he's in this region. And how in the world did they know about it? You didn't have live cameras or something showing what's happening. Word spread, you guys, and it went into actually Jerusalem itself and into the temple sinks, the area of the temple and all, and came down here, and they came down here and kind of really attacked him. And it was right after this happened. Now, Mark doesn't mention this, but Matthew and Luke mention the idea of a guy who's blind and he can't speak. He's sightless and voiceless. He can't see here. He can't see. This guy was blind, and he also was mute, or technically dumb. Dumb meaning you can't talk. And that was a demon, an evil spirit that was causing that. Matthew and Luke describe it. Mark didn't mention it here. And when the devil, actually, I say devil, but it's really technically demons. There's only one devil, and there's a bunch of demons under him. The demon powers literally caused this guy to be like that. And when Satan, well, I keep saying Satan, but him in a sense of his spirits, when that spirit was kicked out of that guy, the guy could speak and he could see. That's pretty much it. Not everybody that has blind or deaf or can't talk, dumb or anything like that, that doesn't mean they have spirits. No, not at all. But some do. So he casts out that spirit. Anyway, this is what happened. The teachers of the law came to the town, to probably Capernaum, and it says he has Beelzebul. And I'll go into that what that means. It says here that he has Beelzebul, and by the prince of the demons, of these demon powers, he casted out other demons. Demons casting out demons, the devil. Now, not just any demon power casting out. They said that he had the chief of the demons by his power. They believe that the spirit that was in Jesus doing this stuff was the devil himself. Satan. The Satan, literally, is what it is. So the Satan is doing all this. So, all right. Well, let's talk about what is this Beelzebul? Now, different translations have different spellings. And by the way, it's interesting. As I've been studying the Bible for years and looking back into literature and all that, all sorts of spellings to names, and they didn't care about spelling. I don't think they had any spelling bees back then. Wouldn't that be nice? All right, but anyway, they didn't care about spelling it. So this is spelled different ways and all. But Beelzebub, but it's really technically in the Greek, Beelzebul. Okay, right here. We have two of them. 1, 2. Beelzebul. And that's one of the other spellings I decided to show you. Look at the I instead of the E, and the 2 B's instead of the 1 B. I mean, that happens a lot in name spelling. I mean, they spell their different names and all. As a matter of fact, one time in the book of John, with the 8 verses, the book of John, John wrote the same word, but he spelled that same word within 8 verses 3 different ways. So who cares about spelling? All right, so this is what I like to suggest. The Beelzebub meant Lord of the dunghill or heap, dung heap or hill. You know what dung is? Cow manure, droppings of a cow. Also, it's the name of it means Lord of the flies, and flies love dunghills, you know. And this became a derogatory name, an insulting name. It used to be sort of a god, by the way, and then Israel, what's called etymology, the word history, kind of changed over time, just like our words do a lot of times. But anyway, also Baal, which is a false god. It was one of the main false gods in that day, way back in the Old Testament. Muyan means Lord of the carrion, which is like putrefying, like decaying flesh of dead people or dead things. Lord of the dead people or dead birds or whatever, and then or flies. So there's different meanings. Then the actual word also has been used, Beelzebul, and that is the Hebrew Zebul is used 5 times in the Old Testament, different ways. And now this is used totally different. Exalted prince or ruler. Lord, like the Lord of as an exalted prince or Lord, exalted Lord or ruler, or to his dwelling place. Like Beelzebul was also a dwelling place of the king or the ruler. Baal is the prince. Baal the prince is what Beelzebul means. You can see the B-E-E instead of B-A-A, so it's really similar. Baal the prince or Baal's abode or dynasty. And speaking of dynasty, Jesus mentioned like kingdom in this passage, which we'll get to in just a second. So what did Jesus say? Well, first it says that he spoke to them in parables. Now, if you've been with me for a while, we've talked about parables a lot of what it means. There's different types of parables in the Bible, you know. And the word para means come alongside. So come alongside, parable, and it means to throw beside, to throw something alongside it. So different kinds of parables. There's short and long stories. You know, the kingdom of heaven is like, and sometimes Jesus talked about a short story, whether it be the woman giving yeast or the man sleeping and the seed grows really quickly overnight. It's just a few verses. Sometimes it's a long story. The parable of the sons, the 2 sons. Or the vineyard that we talked about in Matthew a lot. So, and there's about probably, I don't know how many, 30 of those. But then sometimes he has these short, quick statements. Like in this one, this is a very quick parable. So he didn't tell a story. He just said quick pictures, quick figures, short, quick statements. And and there's probably, who knows, about 70 together. If you put them both together, this, and then 40 of these, you have about 70 altogether. So here's one of these real quick parables. It says, Jesus called them together. So he may have not even heard them say it, but he heard behind their back that they were saying, so he called them over. He called these scribes. And by the way, Pharisees is mentioned in like Matthew. So we have Pharisees and scribes again coming together, coming at him. Hateful, awful thing to call this to Jesus. And yet Jesus loved them and he tried to help them by showing them the truth. This is what we should do. We should help people, love people, no matter what they say, no matter how people act. Really powerful here. It says, Jesus called them and spoke to them in parables, just quick statements. And he said, it's so easy. He said, how can Satan cast out Satan? How can the devil, the big one, the chief, how can the devil cast out demons? Now, there are weaker demons, smaller demons, lesser demons, obviously. But the chief one is going to cast out his people that he wanted them to go into. I mean, how can Satan drive out Satan? Come on. I don't think so. Then he says, if a kingdom, okay, so let me draw this real quick, and we'll finish with this, I believe. So think of it, he mentions three quick things. In the next video, we're going to take the fourth thing that he mentions. But first he mentions Satan. How can Satan cast out Satan? What? Like, really? What would happen if Satan was casting out certain devil casting out little demons, casting them out? He's the one that wanted them to get into the people. He's like, how can Satan do that? And then he said, the next thing he said, if a kingdom is divided against itself, cannot stand. A kingdom divided itself against itself. Come on, talk. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. So he mentions kingdom here. Remember dynasty earlier? See, a kingdom against another itself. It's not against another kingdom. A kingdom divided against itself. Like you're fighting each other. It's a civil war. and that's not good. And then he mentioned a house. He said Satan, kingdom, and then he mentioned a house divided against itself cannot stand. And so, by the way, is your house divided against each other? Are they really arguing a lot? It's not really good. You need to quit arguing if you're fighting a lot and bring it together. It becomes a much more fun place to live at. And you enjoy each other. And yeah, you don't like everything everyone's doing. People's getting on your nerves or whatever. But, in love and kindness and patience, that kind of goes out. And man, it's so much nicer. It's a house of peace and not against each other. Satan likes to divide. It's called divide and conquer. Divide and bring them down. Ruin. Bring the house again down. House divided itself cannot stand. And so this is what he said here. He said, if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. By the way, it's nation against nation. Nation against its own nation and all that. It was a horrible civil war, and it just about divided us. But it was changed, and then it brought together again. And became again more the United States of America. United. Satan is not coming against Satan. I'm going to tell you that right now. So the spirit that was operating and functioning in Jesus was not the devil. It was the Spirit of God. What a hateful thing to say. They were envious, they were jealous, and they were malicious, and they were awful. And then it says, and if Satan rise up against himself, he's going to beat on himself. It says, and be divided, he cannot stand. And he has an end, like he's going to be ruined. So it's a great logical argument against the idea that the operating power that was in Jesus was Satan. And there's people that just don't get it. They don't get who Jesus is, and they don't realize it was the Spirit of God. By the way, it's interesting. They never thought, well, maybe he's not casting out demons, or maybe he's not healing people and all that. They knew he was. It was just too much evidence. They just didn't like the idea that he was doing it. And they did not really like God, and they didn't like Jesus, and so they accused him of having Satan. Like, it's almost like the bully or the boss, Satan boss man or spirit in Jesus, telling the little ones to get out. But he's casting all these people, these demons out. No, I don't think so. Doesn't make sense. But they did not deny. They couldn't say, well, maybe he's not really doing it. They knew he was doing it. It was all over the place. People knew it. That's why so many crowds were coming. And people were getting free. You need to get devil out of your life. If maybe the devil's operating in you with whatever he's causing you to do that's evil, you need to get him out of there. Say, Jesus, deliver me. And by the way, hundreds of years later, it's called the Talmud and all, some of the Jewish writings, I love Jewish people, oh my goodness, God loves them, but they actually said it was sorcery, witchcraft and sorcery and evil spirits type stuff. They mentioned it as sorcery, what Jesus did, which, by the way, is a proof, though, that he was doing miracles. And Satan does miracles. He does evil wonders and all. But this is not Satan that's operating in Jesus. So we're going to get into the next story coming up here. He goes on and says something else really strong, but I didn't want to make it too long. All right, thanks for listening.